So now that we've reached a point where we understand how the final deck surface is going to look like, and again, along the way, this is all adjustable. It's just a matter of getting your ideas down on paper so you can move forward. We have to now start looking at the structure, the posts and the beams that are going to support this, as well as the joists. Now the decking, you'll notice I've got it running in two different directions along two sides, and then it runs parallel or in the same direction along the third side. This is a picture framing technique where we basically lay out the decking in such a manner that you don't see any end cuts. But this requires specific support. So let's first understand what it is that we're looking at and how it is that we actually frame it. So I've got some pictures I'm just going to pull up on Paint just so that I can draw some lines on it as well. So in here, in Paint, if I take a look at this, let me make this full scale so that we get a better picture of this, and open this up. So they're using the same techniques. Oh, this doesn't really help me here. If you zoom in a bit more. So they're using all the same techniques that we had discussed earlier with this, which is basically to be able to use all the offset requirements to maximize the beam. So there is our concrete column. And in here we have our Simpson strong tie connection. So there's the connection between the column and the beam. Now they're using a laminated beam. We're going to be using ply beam. The techniques are still all the same in what we're actually going to achieve. Now our overhang is from that point to the center of the Simpson strong tie, or the center of the column. There's our 2-foot distance offset. The other 2-foot distance offset is the overhang. So that is from the center of the column down to the joist overhang. So you can see how the joist sits on the beam, which then sits on the support, which then sits on the concrete column. There's my deck boards. The deck boards, so you can see the ends of it, and again, this isn't a great picture, but at least it gives us an example of what we're working with. The deck boards run in the same direction as the beam. That's important because the joists basically support the deck boards, and the only way you can do that is by being in a direction that's perpendicular to the boards itself. So let's close this down. I don't want to save any of this. No, don't save. And unfortunately here I just messed up a bit. Let me just zoom previous and bring this back to where it was. Just did an undo here. Bring those down. There's my AutoCAD file. Zoom previous. There we go. So when I look at this picture frame, here I've got two deck levels. The fill pattern is really what determines which way the beams are going to go. So the joists are in this direction, up and down. The beams are in the opposite direction. So the beams are going to be running in the same direction as the joists. But notice I've got these corner details, these framing details. How do I frame that out? Well, I've got several examples here I'm going to show you, just so you get a better sense of how we actually do this kind of work. So let me pull up some of these drawings here. So once again, sorry about that, zoom. So once again, we've got our joist running in this direction, our beams in the opposite direction. You can just see the base of the beam there. And then there is our framing. So how would the deck boards actually go in this application? Okay, let me pick some up here. I'm going to do them in red so you can actually see them. And what I'll do is I'm going to draw a series of lines so you can see how the boards come up. So the boards cross this, cross this, cross this, and they end right there. And then that's really where the decking will end. And in this direction, and I'll pick up a different color for that. Sorry, I'll pick up a different color for that. Let's go with something that's beige. There we go. So the end boards, one will go along here, and this board itself, it's not shown, but it's actually supported down in this direction. So it's actually going to come along here, and you'll notice that it actually has support there. And then the other board will come along here, and it will go along here, and then obviously down at this end it will also be supported. So these boards in here, let me use a third color for that. These boards in here, let's go with blue just so it stands out. This blocking and this blocking basically support the two boards that are in between. You can imagine, if you will, if I don't have that blocking in here, this edge is going to be real wobbly. Now, I need to support the ends of these boards as well, and that's what this board does. So that board supports the end of that particular framing member, or the, deck member. So it's not wobbly. If I just left this edge here, and I didn't have this joist in between, that board would not have any support. So you can see how we have to block all the wood around the edge to support our double framing. That's not the case at the other side, because the deck is the actual joists themselves are running in the right direction. So they'll support the frame that we're putting around this deck, whereas perpendicular to that, we have to make sure that we provide this extra blocking or support. And that's important to note, and that's what we're going to consider as we're working through our project.